January 2021 is already wrapping up. However, 2020 is not completely closed to me. I keep revisiting music from last year, basking in all the awesome songs that were released, with a certain melancholy in the mix. I love that excitement before listening to a new CD, the anticipation. In a way, as a passionate music listener, I live for that thrill of listening to music for the very first time. The feeling of falling in love with music on a first listen. And that's why I look back to 2020 with a certain melancholy. I'd love to relive those feelings of excitement, of not knowing what to expect, of being head over heels with a song even before it reaches the chorus, or not having words to talk about the CD because of how good it is. These are fleeting, rare feelings that you don't feel more than once about the same music. In a way, this is quite the dramatic way to explain that I have a serious love for music, but yeah, let's keep rolling with this, especially now that I've already started talking in such a deep way. I don't know if you are like me about music, regardless if it is performed by voice actors or by bands or artists outside of that realm, but if you are, you get exactly what is the thrill that I am talking about. Love for music aside, in this episode and after last week's episode about the 10 albums that went under the radar in 2020, I will be talking about the best songs in 2020. Let's kick off this episode of Seiyu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyu Lounge. I am your host, Vanessa, and today I will be talking about the 20 best songs released in 2020. And yes, this is only the part 1. This is by no means an exhaustive list, as there were more than 20 songs that struck my fancy. Too many good ones to name. These, however, were the songs that were the soundtrack to my 2020. Songs that carried over to 2021 and are still a soundtrack for me. If you are curious about any of the songs I mention in this episode, I will leave in the description a Spotify playlist with my picks and some more for you to listen to and perhaps find your next favorite song in there. These are highly subjective choices, so chances are you and I don't have the same music tastes. And that's okay. You can leave in the comments below the songs that you recommend me and Seiyu Lounge's listeners to check. I am always open to suggestions, as I found more than once songs or albums that turned into my favorites in some of your recommendations. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times on Seiyu Lounge that rock is my go-to music genre. I grew up listening to rock music, and it really was the first music genre I was genuinely a big fan of. Rock, emo rock, heavy metal, screamo, Brit rock, hardcore, and even doom metal. I was the one to listen to all those rock subgenres and have a blast jamming and headbanging along to the shredding guitar riffs, raw vocal performances, thunderous bass lines, and explosive drums. Over the years, I have broadened my tastes, and jazz, bossa nova, R&B, city pop, EDM, and even pop music that I used to dislike is now a genre I have warmed up a little to, and at times find myself jamming along to it. I am particularly passionate about rock, jazz, and city pop, which is the classy take on pop music but with a retro feel, as well as synthwave. These are usually the music genres that I enjoy the most when I review music. 2020 was particularly rewarding for those like me that love those music genres. Who am I kidding? 2020 was rewarding for fans of music by male seiyuu in general. Plenty of awesome releases, some of those I have spoken about on episodes 22 and 25 of Seiyuu Lounge. There was a lot of variety in a year that had everything to be a massive downer in the music industry. So here's part 1 of the 20 songs that I consider to be the best released in 2020 by male seiyuu, bands, 2D music projects, and seiyuu units. Attention, highly subjective list ahead. Given that all these songs are thoroughly good, counting with fancy vocal performances, unique, attractive or intricate instrumentals or lyrics, there was no ranking made to any of these songs. Let's see. Makoto Furukawa with Mosaic to Fairy Tail. Said it a couple of times before, but I geek a lot about jazz music. In the past couple of years, and especially as I am entering my 30s, jazz music has painted my workdays, exuding an elegance that I want to bask in, and at the same time, relaxing me in ways that other music genres haven't been able to. I've also grown quite passionate about the unique rhythm signatures for drums in jazz music. Those are insanely complex and tricky to pull off, but sound so good in a recording. I can only imagine on a live setting. The only artist among male seiyuu that, for me, has completely nailed jazz music is Makoto Furukawa. He thrives in this music genre. Those dimly lit jazz bar vibes, with band members smartly dressed and the audience matching the class and elegance of the venue, shine with the charm and charisma that Furukawa exudes. The more I listen to Furukawa, the more I appreciate his singing skills and singing tone. Also, his artistry. He's quite the complex lyricist, and the fact that he fully embraced jazz as his music genre to express and convey the feelings in his stories is even more commendable. I've mentioned on episode 22 that I consider From Fairy Tail to be one of the best albums released in 2020. It arrived insanely late, but it quickly and easily took a spot in my top 3. I've went through those reasons in quite some detail on his review and on that episode, so I invite you to check both out if you're curious. I am aware that there are some people that are put off by Furukawa's vibrato output. However, for me, the vibrato he adds to his performances is never enough. He can go for more. He can be much more flamboyant and exciting in his performances, and he would still be sounding pretty natural for the intensity that bebop jazz and swing want on the vocal end. Mosaic to Fairy Tail embodies all of these things I just mentioned. I love its fast tempo, the tricky drum sections, the bouncy contrabass. The brass is on point for me, and those vocals, that charisma on the mic. Makoto Furukawa is a blessing of a singer. Massively talented, oddly underrated, and with a flair for creating elegant soundscapes in which you can lose yourself and have the blast of a lifetime. Solids with Game Is Mine. I mentioned before how much I love jazz music. Well, 2020 was a blessing for fans of male seiyuu and jazz music, as there was plenty to choose from. And with this, I bring you Solids with Game Is Mine. If you're a regular listener of Seiyuu Lounge or an avid reader of The Hand That Feeds HQ, you'll notice that I praise this song quite a lot. I've followed Solids since their debut, and while I am not a fan of their first 2 singles, the group has found their sound and image and have stick to it pretty well. At the same time, there has been quite the improvement on the vocal end. Takuyaguchi has been a reliable figure since the start, but around him, much has changed. Natsuki Hanae is a flashy singer with an insanely high vocal range, and now lots of control. Soma Saito is no longer shy about his performances, has developed a powerful falsetto, is working on his vibrato, and has turned into the group's vocal chameleon. Yuichiro Umehara had the biggest and most complex growth. He was an okay singer but lacked control, at times sounded a bit tone deaf, and lacked any emotion in his performances. 6 years later, and he's got control over his vocals, is comfortable with his vocal range, and performs with emotion. The group has grown and their sound has evolved, with their sexy, risque vibe being the one thing that has remained unchanged since 2015. Throughout the years, the group has released music in a wide variety of music genres, but never something like this. Game Is Mine is too bold and unconventionally solid, yet it fits them perfectly. The flamboyance and the lure in jazz music is at center stage in this song, and as soon as the contrabass starts creating the foundation to Game Is Mine, you'll be quite into its danceable, bouncy and addictive sound. Think of the catchiness of pop with the elegance of jazz, all in the same song. This is quite a simplistic way to describe the song, but at its core, it's exactly that. The brass is quite intense on this one, so if you're not that into brass in your music, this will be quite the difficult one to digest. On my end, I found it as another element part of the whole classy vibe Solid's had going in this song. Game Is Mine is quite the awesome song, a massive surprise coming from a group that had never before tried their hand at jazz music. Trigger with Crescent Rise. Trigger had quite a good year with the release of Crescent Rise and My Precious World. I've mentioned on the episode 22 of Seiyu Lounge that Crescent Rise was a song that I fell in love with as soon as the intro riff started playing, and I was pretty excited for it to be released in full after having experienced the song being performed live back in 2019. Crescent Rise is indeed a song that marked 2020 for me. There's a lot of emotion going in this song, something that can be easily felt by the group's performances, with Wataru Hatano taking the center position and showcasing his vocal prowess and emotional range in ways that impressed me. There's a rock edge to this song that I love, despite the fact that it is indeed a dance pop track at its core. The clock ticks, and those overdriven guitar riffs distort the air around you in quite the dramatic fashion. You know you're in for a powerful song by its presentation alone. Of course, things could have went on a completely different direction past that haunting intro. Thankfully, the song flowed how I predicted and I was enthralled. Crescent Rise is dark and gritty. The verses are led by a looping overdriven guitar melody as deep, washy industrial synths shape this song into the absolute banger it is. Strings make a killer entrance, opening the dynamics in Crescent Rise. The chorus is explosive and intense. The emotion it packs still makes me go back to this song from time to time. It was on heavy rotation for me in 2020 and will continue to be one of my all-time favorite songs by Trigger. Ruby Leopard with Prisoner. If there is an underrated band in the 2D music industry, it's Ruby Leopard. The grunge rock band, counting with vocals by Makoto Furukawa, has been releasing shredding songs one after another since their debut, yet The band has low sales numbers, doesn't rank high on Oricon's charts, nor it has a big following in Japan nor overseas. But the music is awesome. If you're big on a punchy, robust bass sound with a lot of groove to it, Ruby Leopard surely has you covered. Prisoner brings to the table shredding guitar riffs and electrifying bass line, sharing the top spot as Ruby Leopard's best bass line with Chain to You, and clean snare-driven drums, creating a heavier and dirtier sound than usual in the verses. The song carries over pretty well into the chorus, exploding into a catchy and slow-paced chorus that you'll want to jam along to. Ruby Leopard's approach to a heavier sound was done in quite a tasteful way in Prisoner, a song that was a constant feature on my playlists throughout the past year. If you can, please give the band a go. Refreshing rock sound, awesome vocals, we're talking about Makoto Furukawa. And of course, a repertoire filled with bangers to enjoy. Phantom Iris with Histoire. Because there's never enough rock to paint my days, here's another feature that I thoroughly enjoyed in 2020 and that I consider one of the best songs released in the past year. Phantom Iris, Visual Kei rock band counting with the vocals of Arthur Lounsbury, completely stole my attention with their riveting single, Histoire. Out of all songs in the release, the title track was the one that made me a fan of theirs. As a fan of rock music and particularly of Visual Kei, I can confidently say that we do not have enough projects exploring both. Visual Kei only got the spotlight on the male seiyuu side with Fly Me Project's bands, Medicode and Drink Me, and we experienced a bit of its greatness with Osiris in Bandia Rose. One of these projects is on hiatus and the other was discontinued, although the band still releases music from time to time. So there was a massive gap to fill in the Visual Kei department within the 2D music industry. Phantom Iris arrived and filled that gap for me. I didn't need more than 10 seconds to be completely into Histoire. The instrumental brings jazz vibes, mixing those with rock and classic elements. Strings have the spotlight in this song, shifting from legato to pizzicato to enhance certain phrases. I love the strings acoustic guitar combo in Histoire. It gives a rustic and classic touch to the song without mellowing it too much. As a result, it flows smoothly and seamlessly from verses to chorus and into the engaging guitar solo in the bridge. I've wrote it before, but I really can't stress enough how much I like the whole vibe about this song. On the vocal end, Arthur Lounsbury goes for a complete performance. Not only does he do it with flair, spreading a bit of his magic with vibrato and falsetto, but he also showcases a confidence as the frontman that really impresses me. Not many seiyuu can say that they have attempted to perform Visual Kei and ended up sounding like the real deal. Aside from Phantom Iris's Arthur Lounsbury, a shout out to Fly Me Project's Medicode and Drink Me and Bandia Rose's Osiris. Most seiyuu, aside from those experiences, only sound like they are singing along to a Visual Kei song. Just like Saito, Yamashita and Kobayashi, Lounsbury embraces the Visual Kei movement and its theatricality and delivers an authentic performance. I appreciate this a lot in seiyuu that have singing experience or that are active in the music industry. The ability to absorb music genres, vibes and quirks and create a performance that is intrinsically theirs and incredibly believable, as if they have been performing that music genre for a long time. Arthur Lounsbury impressed me, and Phantom Iris' Histoire was quite the impactful song for me. A breath of fresh air in the 2D music industry. A band that fills in a void that was getting increasingly deeper and wider. The Cat's Whiskers with For Real. Hip-hop no longer is a novelty in the 2D music industry, and it is already noticeable that many are sick of it because of the complete dominance, yet, weirdly enough, stale creativity of Hipgnosis Mic. Then there's Paradox Live, a franchise that has a completely different premise, yet at its core isn't that much different from the latter, as it also features the whole battle system between teams with fan voting and counts with frequent music releases. If you're not interested in hip-hop, then this entry is not for you. However, if you want to give a chance to hip-hop by 2D groups or just enjoy hip-hop and want to try something new, I've got the thing for you. If you're like me, someone that enjoys music for what it is and seldom gets into the stories and lore of the music projects, Paradox Live have variety and quality, putting the spotlight on hip-hop subgenres and representing those pretty well. Among the various teams, I am particularly fond of the Cat's Whiskers. Don't get me wrong, I find the whole meowing gimmick in the middle of the songs to be cheesy as hell. However, they are a team that picked up lo-fi hip-hop and jazz hop and put the spotlight on both when these are considered niche subgenres that don't attract a big crowd. It was something that I was expecting to find in Hipgnosis Mic when the project was launched, but so far we don't have it at all. And also something that I didn't know could be so well pulled off by a hip-hop group comprised of mostly unexperienced rappers among Seiyu. The Cat's Whiskers For Real brings old school rap to the table, very reminiscent of East Coast's jazz hop by the legendary crew Wu-Tang Clan. For Real counts with minimalistic jazz drums, a bouncy bass line, elegant piano melodies sampled, and a beautiful saxophone melody playing in the background. The rap performance is soulful and full of emotion, with the whole group displaying a lot of confidence and comfort in what was only their third outing as a group. The gospel-inspired choir in the chorus gives me chills. It is like going back in time, revisiting the likes of Jay-Z and Kanye West, the old one, and a clear nod to the New York classics. As a result, For Real went straight into my favorites list and is a song that I rank pretty high among the best songs released in 2020. A must listen. Erosion with Redhead. This is one of those songs that has went under the radar for many fans of Seiyu and 2D groups. If you're not fond of rock music, then this song really went under your radar. Erosion, 5-vocal rock band from the Carnelian Blood franchise, were pretty active during their debut year. They released 3 singles and showcased a lot of talent and quite a lot of potential left to tap. There were highs and lows in the quality of their music, but everything changed when Redhead was released. There's no denying that this single was their best entry in 2020, and including the song that I consider the best rock song in 2020 coming from a 2D group. The title track, Redhead, marries electronica with rock in a unique way among all active rock bands in the 2D music industry. Their sound is incisive, rough, and plenty dirty, with their guitar riffs screaming, the drums pounding, and the power and explosiveness that impress. The bass makes itself heard, reverberating on your ears, making the overall experience listening to this song all the more intense. While the verses are pretty simple, the chorus, bridge, and outro are out of this world. This is what rock music in 2D music projects should be all about. Not being shy of sounding aggressive and being rough with a purpose. I am a sucker for many things in this song. First off, I love the production of this track. The mixing is balanced, yet with a slight focus on enhancing the bass levels. The vocals are clear and clean, and for once, I enjoyed the unison performance in the chorus. This is what unison is for, to enhance the power in the performance. In the case of this song, it has a purpose and works well. In previous songs of theirs, it was a bit too much for my taste. Then you have those low guitar riffs and the double bass drums, all taking me back to the golden age of nu metal, being explosive and edgy and actually sounding good instead of being edgy just because. If you're a fan of aggressive, loud, and intense rock music, I thoroughly suggest you to check Erosion's Red Hat. Vezi with Yureteitai. Vezi are pretty underrated. While I can agree that not everything the group has released is gold, they have been finding their groove and managed to come up with some moments of brilliance. Such moments were captured in their entry in the Color series, titled Blue. The CD counted with 2 songs, and out of those it was Yureteitai that completely stole the show for me. Vezi are known for their mix of rock and electronica, but upbeat and up-tempo is something that you'd never really say about their group music. Yureteitai arrived to add variety into their repertoire, bringing in bubbly, summery vibes to the spotlight, and betting on an overall hierarchy-oriented vocal performance. This is the kind of easy-listening, feel-good song that we all need in our life. It's fun, groovy, and danceable, and the performance by Tarusuke Shingaki, Yusuke Kobayashi, and Shun Horie left me speechless. Yeah, Vezi are an awesomely talented group with plenty of good music as their greeting card. If you want a slow-tempo dance floor tune, Yureteitai is the thing for you. Shugo Nakamura with Oh No. Shugo Nakamura didn't shy away from exploring an elegant jazz-funk sound, and how well did he fare? Pretty well, I must say. I've been enjoying Nakamura's music since his debut, especially because he's a singer-songwriter with his own unique sound and image, something that is still a rarity among male seiyuu performing as solo artists. Hono brought the dreamy Rhodes piano to the spotlight and enlisted the help of classy brass, jazzy drums, a groovy bass line, and funky guitar riffs to create what is his best song released to date, and certainly one of the highlights in 2020. I love the break between the first chorus and the second verse, in which you shift the tempo, slowly introducing ska into the mix. It's not often that this music genre finds its way to the spotlight, especially in seiyuu music, and as a fan of the genre, it ended up being a treat. Additionally, Shugo Nakamura went off in his performance, bringing a whole lot of energy into the mix. All these points taken into account, and yes, Oh No was one of the best songs released in 2020. Old Codex with Blow Away. Old Codex have a gentle, emotional side. This is a sentence I never imagined myself saying when I came across the band in 2010. Yet, here we are. Old Codex are now a matured punk rock, electronic rock band hybrid. Tatsu has grown as a singer and songwriter, and York has also perfected his lyrics. This is a band that gives me a lot of pleasure to listen to. There's always something new up their sleeve, even if it's a detail with the guitar melodies or piano melody, or even a bass groove in the background. Old Codex always make their music special. However, I have grown to love the band even more since they started to showcase a vulnerable and emotional side. Leatherless was the turning point for the talented band, venturing and embracing ballads, making them work with their whole aggressive, daring punk rock image. That carried over to Take On Fever and Core Fade. In 2020, Old Codex weren't as active as in previous years, but Core Fade, the single, was quite the powerful entry. Blow Away paints a sorrowful yet beautiful image that is hard not to notice and be affected by it. The haunting piano intro, the dreamy scenes, the urgent guitar riffs, Tatsu's raspy and emotional vocals, all shown. Pretty unique take on the ballad genre, has some touches of power ballad on it, with synths making their way to the spotlight. The mix between rock's power, ballad's emotions, and electronica's chill-out twist made Blow Away stand out as a pretty unique song, one of the most memorable released in 2020. These were just some of the songs that were the soundtrack to my 2020. Those were the songs that no matter what, I can listen to time and time again and never get tired of. There are easy listening songs in this episode, but also complex ones on the composition side, as I am a massive geek about music composition. Once again, these and more picks are available on a Spotify playlist that I leave in the description, so make sure to check it out for a dash of cool, refreshing and loungy music released in 2020. If there is one thing that makes me excited about 2021, but at the same time a bit cautious, are the possibilities in terms of male seiyuu music. 2020 was a pretty flawless year filled with highlights. Honestly, I have been reviewing male seiyuu and 2D projects' music since 2010, and this was the first time since 2013 that I felt like the year was filled with great music and certainly a much more creative pool of artists delivering that music to all of us. Seiyuu are getting more skilled, or those that were skilled to begin with are only now showcasing their skills with confidence. As a result, we got amazing performances last year. I've mentioned on episode 22 of Seiyuu Lounge what were the biggest albums of the year, and look at those and listen to them, and it is obvious just how high quality production of seiyuu music is nowadays. It's like night and day in comparison with the quality of the music released a decade ago. We also get more seiyuu wanting to showcase their songwriting talents, something that was not common nor expected of seiyuu a decade ago. 2D units, rock bands or idol groups also have music with much more quality, even if sometimes some projects get a bit lazy and go the generic route for 1 or 2 releases. But overall, much has changed in a decade, and 2020 stood out as one of the best years in the music industry for male seiyuu and 2D music projects. In this episode, you got 10 out of my 20 picks of the best songs released in 2020. Now tell me, what were the songs by male seiyuu and 2D music projects released in 2020 that you couldn't stop listening to? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to miss the Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly male seiyuu and music related content, hit the subscribe button. I'll return next week with another episode of Seiyu Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.